Well, welcome. We've had incredible comments and engagement from the videos that Eva Marie and I were shooting with David. Eva Marie, unfortunately, was not able. She's busy. This is a busy woman. Let me just tell you, we're all busy. Well, darling, I've missed you.
I've missed you too. We talked by phone, but we haven't seen each other.
I know, and I love your top. It's very
Do
beautiful.
you? Listen,
And
I'm so excited. I'm so excited. You know that I had a reaction to something this past year, broke out in a horrible rash, and those who know me best know all about it. But I had bought this sweater, and this is my telltale sweater. So once a week, I try it on, and if my skin could not take it, I knew I was still having issues. Not the same issue, but my skin was still trying to heal from the rash. And I put it on this morning, and I can wear it. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to wear it for my video with Jane.
Yes, darling. I am so
It's
glad
fun.
you're better. Golly, those things.
Yeah,
I mean,
so
I've had a
easy.
tear in my rotator cuff, and I'm under. I mean, it's what my mama said it. AGE,
Uh-huh. Yes.
AGE, and
It ain't for sissies.
uh-uh.
No.
Mama had a colorful word in front of that. I will not say, but it
Well,
gets tough,
yes.
and so you have to get tough with it. And speaking of health, and speaking of
Yes.
being tough, I just want to say this before we get started. And I already mentioned how busy you are, and you are an incredible writer. You've got the Florida Christian Writers Conference. I'm tickled I'm going to be a part of that. Thank you for the
Yay.
invite. Yay. And you are working with the Blue Ridge Christian Writers, and you are in charge of the Sela Awards.
Yes. And the foundations.
And
Yes.
the foundation. My point is, on top of that, I've had this film for the last 2 weeks. 2 weeks
Yes.
ago.
Been watching, been looking
Yeah,
at the pictures.
I mean, I'm on set in Virginia, and
Yeah.
when I get more details, I can share them. But it's been very difficult. It's fun. I love the kids that are working, and I love the people I've met from all over the country. But let me just tell you, if you don't feel good, you're gonna stay home, and
Yeah.
you're not gonna. So this stuff that David's sharing with us is really important. And one of the topics that you and I decided to tackle is cholesterol. Now, I don't know if you're genetically predisposed. I am.
Yeah.
Are you?
I'm not. Yeah.
So your cholesterol levels are really low.
Yeah, typically they are, and and I was sharing this with you earlier. Back in my nursing days, when I was working as a nurse, I worked at the Georgia Institute for Prevention of Disease, and our whole focus was not on getting people well because they were sick. Our focus was keeping people from getting sick. So of course, one of the things we focused on was cholesterol and cholesterol studies and things like that. And for sure, if you are predisposed, if you're genetically disposed to having high cholesterol, there are things you can do, obviously, to help keep that down. But that's just a battle you're probably going to have. Fortunately for me, neither one of my parents or any of my grandparents ever had cholesterol issues that I knew of. I had two grandparents on my mother's mother and father both died young, but from other issues. And so my father's parents and everybody else on my mother's side of the family tend to live very, very long lives. So
with no cholesterol.
so very blessed in that.
Girl, that's a blessing, because I know
It is,
most
but
my
it's also imperative though that I eat right, and that is now one of the things that we believed in the studies that I was a part of, as far as being in the laboratory part and the research part of those studies, was that you could exercise till the cows come home, and that really doesn't do anything for your cholesterol. But how you eat, when you eat, that kind of thing, that is very important. So
and being that you're in the healthcare profession before your previous,
yeah,
and you're aware of this stuff. But here's what was so interesting. I've pulled some talking points that David shared. He said that people have been told. You remember the big thing about eggs and cholesterol?
Yeah.
Nobody ate eggs. There's a devil in the deviled eggs.
Yeah.
And David said
it was all about it was the protein. It was the protein.
Yeah. He just
they
said
kept changing the rules on eggs.
completely. This is a quote from him. For 98% of folks, eating cholesterol, like in egg yolks, doesn't actually raise blood cholesterol. Let me just say that again. Eating an egg will not cause you to have a heart attack. Cholesterol is not the problem. It is inflammation. And I've always heard that inflammation really is disease. And I'm on a statin drug and I don't love it. But I will tell you, for those folks who are on a statin drug, David takes a different kind of statin and it's called Livalo, Livalo. And he said it's a generic name for, I can't pronounce this drug, but he said it's gentle on the muscles. And unlike some statins that leave you like you've been hit by a truck, he said this is a good one to Livalo, Livalo. Lival, yeah, Livalo. So, food for thought, seriously. But you're right about that.
Yeah.
My good friend Mary had I cannot pronounce it, Eva Marie. Is it orthosclerosis?
Okay.
And it
yeah.
died in her sleep. And so many people have so much of the plaque buildup. But again, and then we just did the CIMT test at our church, and a friend of mine, her arterial disease is 15 years older than her chronological, which means she's got inflammation.
Right.
That's something you got to, and now the big thing is glass of wine or alcohol. And supposedly the new studies say that does not really help with that. Have you read anything about that in your world?
I haven't. They always have some kind of study going on somewhere, though, don't they? You know what? My grandparents, my great grandparents, I don't remember a time when they did not have what we call in the South a toddy in the afternoon.
Yes.
They would have their toddy, right? So they would have, and I'm not talking about sloppy drunk. I'm not talking about falling down drunk. I'm talking about just a very simple toddy.
Yeah,
And or a glass of wine. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about 2 and 3 glasses of wine. I'm talking about a small glass of wine or sherry or something like that. And to me, it makes sense that, and I'm talking about, maybe a whiskey, a bourbon, a brandy, or whatever, or a glass of red wine, because white wine, obviously, we know has a lot of sugar in it.
Yeah.
But that does thin the blood, and so if that's the case, I can't. If you have what we used to call sludging of the blood, I can't see where that would be a problem. That would, for me, now I'm not talking about if you're an alcoholic or, if you are a genuinely diagnosed alcoholic that you should be having a drink. That's not what I'm talking about. But it's just interesting to me that my great aunts and uncles and my great grandparents, who I knew, they died when I was in high school, for crying out loud. So, but this was a natural part of their day, and they being Southerners, they put lard in everything. They fried everything.
Yeah.
But you know what? They were active, and they did that. That one little thing. I don't remember anybody being on large doses of medicine. But what I do remember is that they died later in life and not so early in life. And then we look at studies like in other countries where they eat high fat foods, and yet they'll tell you it's the right kind of fat, it's the right kind of oil. They have a glass of wine with that meal, that kind of thing. Right. I don't know. I'm just going to be honest. I'm excited to see what JFK Jr. is going to come up with. RFK. I'm sorry, RFK Jr.
I call him that too.
Come up with. Because I think that as a country, as my mother-in-law used to say, we screwed the pooch. We have really messed up.
But you hit on something. You really hit on something when like you said, exercise will not completely get rid of it, but it is so good for you to exercise. David, he made the comment, 150 minutes of cardio, get your heart rate up.
Yes.
And he said that's roughly 30 minutes a day. And he said the way he does it, and I've heard people doing this, he has a treadmill.
Yes, I have a treadmill.
Look, as you know, in Florida, I'm sure it's beautiful. And in South Carolina too. I mean, this is the Masters week that we're in, and everything's just gorgeous. But just 30 minutes to get your heart rate up. And he would say squats, lunges, and bicep curls uh,
Yeah.
weight
Yeah.
resistance. We have to keep those large muscle groups because so many people, they lose them, and it's, oh boy, can it happen fast. I'm sure you can tell
Yes.
a gazillion stories about working as an RN, and probably more degrees than that, Eva Marie, with people that got sedimentary from disease. And so I'm
Mhm.
sure that's a big deal. You got to
Well,
know.
even on a, yeah, on a personal level, I contracted RSV last year, which affects your lungs, and I had to stop walking for a season. I mean, I could barely get off the sofa, much less go for a walk. And then once I could, the humidity, as it is there with you here in Florida, is such that when I would go out and I would try to walk, I was having difficulty breathing.
Yeah.
And so I said to my husband, "Okay, it's time to buy another treadmill," because I'd had a treadmill for a lot of years, and I went to walking outside with a friend. Friend moved away, and so then I was walking by myself. But then I got RSV, and then I had trouble breathing. So we bought the treadmill, it's sitting right over there actually, and that's what I do. I'm probably on it, 50, I would say minutes a day, 50, and at least 30 of those are at high intensity on an incline.
Yeah.
And I had to build up to that, but
I've been watching your
it's so much
progress. You
easier.
were posting that. But
Yes. Yeah, for a while I was posting my progress, and now I print out a calendar and I write it down every day. This is the distance, this was the calories, this was the steps, this was the time. So I keep a record of that so that
I
I can look at it at the end of the month and see how I did.
Yeah, and David said people get bored, so he streams movies
That's
and
what I
watches
do.
movies.
I put on either I love old movies.
Yeah,
Classic movies are my thing. In fact, what I was watching today was Rebecca, the 1940 Alfred Hitchcock,
yeah.
Laurence Olivier, Joan Fontaine, Rebecca. Yeah,
Well, I love that. We're gonna come back and talk a
yeah,
little bit. I want to
yeah.
talk about the Super 7 vitamins.
Oh
We will
yes, let's talk about
continue.
vitamins. All
Yes,
right.
darling. We got okay. Good. Good.